My Gran started the Sunday roast at 8 in the morning. 8 o'clock. Before anyone else in the house was even awake. I'd come downstairs as a kid, maybe 9 years old, and she'd already be in the kitchen. Apron on. Radio playing quietly. The smell hitting me before I even opened the door. That smell. Roasting meat and onions and something sweet underneath. Something I could never quite identify. Something that meant Sunday. Something that meant home. Gran's Sunday roast wasn't just a meal. It was the event the whole week built towards. Dad would mention it on Wednesday. Mum would plan around it on Friday. My brother and I would argue about who got the crispiest roast potato on Saturday night. And then Sunday morning would come and Gran would be in that kitchen at 8 o'clock and everything was right with the world. I make Sunday roast now. I follow recipes. I watch cooking programs. I buy good meat from the butcher. And it's fine. It's perfectly fine. But it's not Gran's. There's always something missing. Something I can't name. Something that no recipe has ever managed to give me. Until I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Watching her hands. Asking the right questions. Writing things down. And slowly I understood. Gran's Sunday roast wasn't a recipe. It was a system. 12 secrets that nobody ever wrote down. That no cooking school teaches, that you could only learn by standing in that kitchen on a Sunday morning, watching someone who'd been doing it for 50 years. Today, I'm going to tell you all 12, every single one. Stay until the end, because the last secret is the one that will change everything, the one nobody expects, and the one Gran never admitted to, until I caught her doing it. The first secret was the meat at room temperature. Gran never cooked cold meat. Never. The joint came out of the larder, not the fridge, the larder, at least 2 hours before it went in the oven. Sometimes 3. She'd unwrap it, set it on the roasting tin and leave it on the kitchen table. Just sitting there. Coming up to room temperature slowly. Naturally. Cold meat put straight into a hot oven seizes up immediately. The outside overcooks before the inside has even started. You end up with grey meat, dry edges, and a center that's either undercooked or taken another hour to catch up. Room temperature meat cooks evenly. The heat penetrates at the same rate throughout. The outside browns beautifully while the inside stays pink and juicy. Gran didn't know the science. She knew what she'd seen happen when she got it wrong 40 years ago. And she never got it wrong again. Do you remember the larder? That cool cupboard every house used to have before fridges took over. The second secret was the fat. Gran was never afraid of fat, never apologized for it, never trimmed it off. The fat was the point. A good piece of beef with proper fat coverage, a leg of lamb with the fat scored and studded with rosemary and garlic, a chicken rubbed all over with butter until your hands were slippery. Fat is flavor. Fat bastes the meat as it cooks. Fat crisps and caramelizes on the outside, creating that dark, almost burnt crust that tastes of everything good. Gran would have looked at the lean, trimmed, vacuum-packed joints in today's supermarkets and shaken her head slowly. Not in judgment, in sadness. When did we start being afraid of fat? When did we start throwing away the best part? The third secret was the bed of vegetables. Gran never put the meat directly on the roasting tin. Never. She built a bed first. Roughly chopped onions, celery, carrots, a whole head of garlic split in half, sometimes a sprig or two of thyme. The meat sat on top of this, several centimeters above the bottom of the tin. This did 3 things at once. It kept the meat off the direct heat of the tin, stopping the bottom from overcooking. It created a rack that let air circulate underneath. And as those vegetables cooked down, they released their sugars and their juices into the bottom of the tin, into the drippings, into what would become the gravy. That bed of vegetables was the beginning of the gravy, already building, already developing. Before Gran had even thought about the gravy, she planned backwards, always. The fourth secret was basting, every 20 minutes, without fail. Gran set a timer, an old mechanical one that ticked loudly and rang like a fire alarm. Every 20 minutes it went off, and Gran would open the oven, Pull out the tin and spoon the hot fat and juices over the top of the meat. Every surface, every angle, every part that might dry out. Then back in the oven. Timer reset. 20 minutes later, same again. Basting keeps the surface moist. It adds layer after layer of flavor. It creates that mahogany-colored crust that you see in old family photographs from the 50s and 60s. The deep, glossy, almost lacquered surface that tells you the meat was loved, was tended, was watched. Today we put the meat in and walk away for 2 hours. We check our phones. We forget it's there. And then we wonder why the outside is dry and the color is grey. Gran never forgot it was there. It was the most important thing happening in her house. Do you remember the sound of that basting spoon? The sizzle when the fat hit the hot meat? The 5th secret was the resting. This is the one that people still get wrong, still rush, still skip. Gran rested her roast for at least 30 minutes before carving, sometimes 45. She'd take it out of the oven, tent it loosely with a clean cloth, not foil, cloth, and leave it on the counter. Nobody was allowed to touch it. It was resting. It needed to rest. The juices in meat move to the surface during cooking. If you carve immediately, they pour out onto the board and are lost. If you rest the meat, the juices redistribute back through the whole joint. Every slice stays moist. Every bite has flavor. Gran knew this without knowing why she knew it. She just knew that if you carved too soon, the meat was dry. And dry meat at Sunday roast was a personal failure she was not prepared to accept. Does anyone in your family still do this? Or has the resting gone the same way as everything else? The 6th secret was the roast potatoes. This deserves its own television program. Gran's roast potatoes were impossible. Crisp on the outside with a crust that shattered. Fluffy on the inside, golden all over, light enough to eat 6 without guilt and heavy enough to feel them for the rest of the afternoon. The secret started the night before. Gran parboiled her potatoes on Saturday evening. Drained them. Let them steam dry. Then shook them violently in the pot with the lid on until the edges went fluffy and rough. Refrigerated overnight. On Sunday, she heated fat in the roasting tin. Proper fat, goose fat or dripping, never oil, until it was smoking. Then she lowered the cold potatoes in. The cold potato hitting the smoking fat was the key. That temperature shock created the crust immediately, sealed the outside in seconds, and then 45 minutes in a hot oven, turning once, and they were perfect. Every time. How many roast potato recipes have you tried? And how many were ever as good as the ones you remember? The 7th secret was the gravy. Real gravy. Not granules dissolved in boiling water, not a stock cube and corn flour. Gran's gravy started with those roasting vegetables in the bottom of the tin. The dark, caramelized, almost burnt bits stuck to the metal. She'd put the tin directly on the hob over a medium heat. Sprinkle in a small amount of flour. Stir it into the fat with a wooden spoon, scraping up every dark bit from the bottom. Cook it for 2 minutes, stirring constantly. Then pour in a glass of red wine. The sizzle was extraordinary. The steam was extraordinary. She'd stir until the wine reduced, then pour in hot stock. Homemade stock that she'd been simmering since Friday. And stir, and simmer, and stir, and season, and taste, and adjust. For 20 minutes. The gravy was never rushed. Gran said a roast without proper gravy was just meat and vegetables. She wasn't wrong. When did we decide that granules were good enough? The 8th secret was the Yorkshire pudding timing. This is pure science that Gran understood as pure instinct. Yorkshire puddings need the hottest possible oven. They need smoking fat. And they need batter that has rested. Gran made her batter first thing in the morning when she started the roast. Equal volumes of plain flour, eggs and milk. A pinch of salt. Whisked until smooth, then left on the counter. All morning. While the roast cooked, while she basted every 20 minutes. That batter sat there, resting, the gluten relaxing, the bubbles settling. When the meat came out to rest, Gran turned the oven to maximum. Put the pudding tin with the fat in the very top. Waited until the fat was smoking. Poured the batter in fast. Closed the oven and did not open it for 25 minutes. Did not open it, did not look, did not check. Trust the process, trust the heat, trust the batter that had been resting all morning. And they rose. Perfectly. Every time. Do you remember the moment Gran opened that oven door? The ninth secret was the greens. Never overcooked. This was Gran's one absolute rule about vegetables. Everything else could be flexible. The greens could not be overcooked. She timed them to the minute. Cabbage went in 4 minutes before everything was served. Brussels sprouts 6 minutes. Beans 5 minutes. Each vegetable had its time, and that time was respected. She always added a pinch of bicarbonate of soda to the water. A very small pinch. It kept the color vivid green, kept the vegetables bright and alive looking on the plate. And she always added a knob of butter and a pinch of salt while they were still hot in the pan. Before they went on the plate, that butter melted and coated every surface. Every piece of cabbage, every sprout, every bean arrived at the table glistening. Ready. Not an afterthought. Part of the whole. The 10th secret was the table. This sounds too simple. But it mattered enormously. Gran set the Sunday table properly. Every week, white tablecloth, proper plates, not everyday ones. Wine glasses even when there was no wine. Serving dishes for each vegetable rather than just bringing the pots to the table. Gravy in the gravy boat. Not poured straight from the pan. Everything presented, everything considered. The table told everyone who sat down at it that this meal was important. That the person who cooked it thought they were important. Gran never said those words. She set the table instead. And we knew. Somehow we always knew. The 11th secret was the timing. Everything ready at the same moment. This was the thing that separated Gran from every other cook I've ever watched. The meat resting, the potatoes in the oven, the Yorkshire puddings rising, the greens in the pot, the gravy simmering. All of it timed to arrive at the table simultaneously, hot, perfect, together. Not the potatoes ready 10 minutes before and going cold. Not the meat carved and sitting while the puddings catch up. Everything together. Gran did this calculation in her head after 50 years of Sundays. She made it look effortless. It was anything but. I have a written chart on my kitchen wall just to get close. She had it all up here, in her memory, where it always lived. And now the 12th secret, the one she never admitted, the one I only discovered by watching quietly on a Sunday morning when she thought I was watching the football in the other room. When the gravy was almost done, when everything was nearly ready. Gran opened the tin of Marmite. She dipped a teaspoon in, and she added just a tiny amount, barely half a teaspoon, to the gravy. Stirred it in quickly. It dissolved immediately, left no trace. You couldn't taste it. Not exactly. But without it, something was missing. That depth, that darkness, that savory quality that made Gran's gravy different from every other gravy I've ever tasted. Marmite in gravy is not a new idea. Professional chefs use it. Restaurant kitchens use it. But Gran was using it in the 1960s in a kitchen in the north of England, not because she'd read it anywhere, because she'd experimented, because she'd noticed, because she was, without knowing it, one of the best cooks any of us will ever know. These were the 12 secrets of Gran's Sunday roast. Meat at room temperature. Never afraid of fat. The bed of vegetables for the gravy, basting every 20 minutes, resting before carving, the parboiled and roughed up potatoes in smoking fat. Real gravy from the roasting tin. Yorkshire pudding batter rested all morning. Greens timed to the minute with butter. The properly set table. Everything timed to arrive together. And the half teaspoon of Marmite in the gravy. None of these are complicated. None require expensive equipment. None require professional training. They require time, attention, care. The willingness to be in the kitchen at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning because you understand that what you're making matters, that the people you're making it for matter. We've lost so much of this. We eat at different times now. We grab food on the go. We order in on Sundays. We tell ourselves we don't have time. But Gran had 6 children and no washing machine, and a job and a garden, and still managed to have the roast on the table at 1 o'clock every Sunday without fail for 50 years. Maybe the time was always there. Maybe we just stopped deciding it was worth spending. Tell us in the comments. Did your gran make a Sunday roast? What do you remember about it? The smell? The sound of that basting spoon? Did she have a secret ingredient nobody ever found out about? Every memory shared is a Sunday that doesn't disappear. Leave a like if this took you back, share it with someone who remembers, and subscribe to find out more secrets that our grandmothers knew and that nobody is teaching anymore. Because they deserve to be remembered, and so do the people who knew them.